Before we get started, this is my second time recording this video. My footage got corrupted yesterday, so I have to redo the entire thing. There's something special about your first real horror movie. Not the first one you've seen ever, but the first one to really scare you. In 2013, I was 10, so I didn't get to watch The Conjuring in theaters, but I did get to see it from the kitchen when my dad rented the DVD. There was something about it that just seemed so much more real than anything I had seen before. Part of me wants to say it's because they put based on a true story pretty much anywhere it makes sense to advertise it, but when I rewatched it recently, I realized I hadn't been giving it nearly enough credit. This is nearly a perfect film. In case somehow you've gone 12 years without watching The Conjuring, I'll give you the elevator pitch. In 1971, Roger and Carolyn Perron moved their really big family into a new house in Rhode Island. Unfortunately for them, the house is haunted, and as paranormal activity ramps up, Carolyn reaches out to paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren for help. I think three things make The Conjuring work as well as it does. The scares are of course fantastic. There are great scenes in here that make this feel like a really classic haunting movie. The ones that stick out in my mind are the pictures all falling at the same time and any shot where the ghosts are playing peekaboo. These kinds of scares could probably find themselves in another film, but series creator James Wan manages to execute them masterfully. It's like watching a pro skater do a kickflip. It's nothing groundbreaking, but it's always kind of cool to see one well executed. There are a couple scares in here that I think are genuinely brilliant though. The hide and clap scene is the scare in the movie, but when Lorraine's out with the drying laundry and we see the ghost appear before her, and then it moves up to the room that Carolyn's in, that shit makes my tummy hurt. Bathsheba is also just a really scary ghost. Her presence in any scene is suffocating. It's honestly really incredible given how sparingly she's used before the finale. The Warrens work really well here. The Warrens are really fun as a normalizing force in the lives of the parents. Ed and Lorraine work because they both genuinely want to help the family, although they go about it in pretty different ways. During the investigation, Ed is much more involved in the physical side of the haunting. It's his job to prove what's happening to the family, but he can't do anything a normal person can. Believe it or not, I think that's a pretty great setup for a character in a horror franchise. Just like Ed is handling the physical side of the family's issues, Lorraine is completely dialed in on figuring out their malevolent spirit problem. This movie buys into the idea that Lorraine Warren had psychic powers, and I'm a big fan of how they're implemented here. Her abilities are used as a way to find more evidence in their investigation. It's essentially just another tool in the kit for the two. Ed is at his best when he's helping the family feel some sense of normalcy, and Lorraine is at her best when she's dealing with anything otherworldly. And the movie really nails this balance. It manages to give both of them things to do that feel equally important, and that's a really cool way to write this dynamic. The focus of the film is decidedly on the Perrons though. While this movie is about a case from the Warrens' files, it's grossly apparent that the focus of the film is on the Perrons and Carolyn's possession. I wish there were a couple fewer kids, but the family was real, so I don't think that's fair to complain about. Even with there being one or two too many of them, I think they're balanced out pretty well when it matters. Their family dynamic also feels incredibly natural. One of my favorite parts of the movie is when the Warrens show up and we see that the family's all sleeping downstairs as a way to comfort each other. This movie is about a family dealing with the ghost in their house, so the more you get the audience to root for the parents and sympathize with them, the better. And this is how you do that. Make them real people. Oh my god, it's so good! I also can't understate that the family in this looks miserable all the time, and it's great! It isn't perfect though. There's exactly one scene that I really don't like in this movie, and that's at about 40 minutes in. One of the kids brings their sleepwalking siblings back to bed, and then the ghost, Bathsheba, jumps down on her. This is the only scare that flat out doesn't work for me. The ghost is too physically present. It looks silly watching her jump down and beat up a kid. What's really strange is that the movie knows that not seeing the ghost is scary, and it does it really well. One of the best scenes in the film is when Joey King gets her foot pulled, and then nearly weeps because something only she can see is in the corner. That's the feeling the dresser scene is missing, and it's the only time a scare in the movie fumbles. Also, I don't remember any of the kids' names. Aside from Joey King, because it's very clearly Joey King, they all kind of blend together. And that's all I remember disliking about the movie. It's wonderfully tense, incredibly well thought out, and it gives me that wonderful ghost movie anxiety in just the way I like. It is just stellar. The Conjuring knows what it wants to do and it knocks it out of the park. But then, what I can only assume to be Satan whispered into the ear of James Wan. See, the first Conjuring movie wasn't just really good, it was really profitable. With a budget of $20 million, it went on to gross $320 million worldwide. So what if we made 9 more? And what if they were literally never that good again? And sadly, they never were. At least not as far as I could remember. The problem is that I haven't seen any of these movies since they were in theaters, so I kind of don't remember how I feel about them, at least not enough to give an opinion. I certainly know that something was lost between the first Conjuring and all of this other shit, but what? Now that the final Conjuring movie's out, it's either saved the franchise or been forgotten to time as a cash grab. I could just go to the theater and complain on the car ride home like a normal person, but I have a YouTube channel. I'm not a normal person, I hate myself. So instead, I decided to rewatch the entire franchise to find out not only if, but when, how, and why the Conjuring movies only got worse over time. It's probably money. It's probably money. It's a little hard to talk about Annabelle, just because the context around the doll influences so much of how you see the movie. I think Annabelle might have cursed my recording yesterday. In case you didn't know, the Annabelle doll is a real thing. She is a real doll. But more importantly, the Warrens were real too. Ed and Lorraine Warren were real life people who claimed to be, for lack of a funnier term, I guess, Ghostbusters. Of course, we now know this isn't the case. The Warrens were con artists who took advantage of grieving and genuinely scared people. They're seriously among some of the most blatant scam artists in the history of the sport. While The Conjuring is at least a little biased, it's part of the fun to buy into it a little. Watching The Conjuring makes you feel like this is a real family that really was haunted. It's not just based on a true story for the sake of it. It's an intentional and interesting choice to frame the events of the movie. As far as we know, this is close enough to what really happened. What I didn't mention is that in The Conjuring, we got our first taste of Annabelle. She's the first shot of the movie, actually. The first scene is Ed and Lorraine telling a lecture hall about that case, and it's fine. A couple nurses came to own a creepy doll that was moving on its own, so they asked the Warrens for help. They had a priest come in and bless the apartment, and the Warrens stored the doll in their occult museum. As far as I'm aware, this is all true, but this movie isn't concerned with any of that. This movie is Annabelle fan fiction. There's a clear difference in approach in trying to scare the audience, and as far as I can tell, that's because James Wan didn't write or direct this movie. The movie was directed by John R. Leonetti, which some of you might recognize as the director of Mortal Kombat Annihilation. The more important character here is the writer, Gary Dauberman. Everything I've seen of Dauberman has convinced me that he either doesn't really care about this franchise, or he's a dog shit writer, if not both. This movie isn't based on a true story, and that's okay. The problem for me is that Dauberman is like half-assing it. This is a clip from possibly the worst edited interview I've ever seen, and it might not be the answer to understanding why Annabelle is so bad, but it's certainly what got me looking in the right direction.
Doll moving around, not, like Chucky or whatever, but you come into a room and it's in a different position, that's part of the true case. There's a couple electrical mishaps that certainly that occur in the film that happen in the true case. So yeah, I definitely drew from the real life. Why not? That's, doesn't that make it all more scarier knowing that this stuff really happened?
It seems like he almost gets it. He understands that this movie is about a real item that has real world history, and is choosing to include it because why not? Instead of using the story to tell a compelling narrative, he's just arbitrarily picking little details from the story to shove in his fanfic. This movie is not about the real nurses who had the doll, or the real people who claimed to have been attacked by it, or even about the Warrens after they got a hold of it. It's about the Annabelle doll. Look at how scary the Annabelle doll is, guys. She rocks in her chair. And isn't that almost deceptive? I know you loved our ghost movie about a real case from the Warrens files, and in that movie, we teased a case about Annabelle. Luckily for you, we made an entire movie that isn't about that. But in the last 5 minutes, we'll show that the nun, I'm jumping ahead. But in the last 5 minutes, we'll tell you that the nuns ended, the nuns? What's happening to me? And in the last 5 minutes, we'll show you how the nurses wound up with it by complete coincidence. Why do that? Why take this movie in that direction? If you're gonna be making shit up for it, why not just make up shit to happen to the nurses? I should probably talk about the horror now. The scariest scene in the Annabelle movie has almost nothing to do with the doll. It's a home invasion. We follow newlyweds Mia and John as they move into their new house. Mia is pregnant. I don't have anywhere else in the script to introduce this. As a gift, John buys Mia a new doll, and then they both go to sleep quietly that night. Unfortunately, the neighbors aren't as lucky. Next door, we see the murder of Mia and John's neighbors, and after John checks out the situation, we see the invaders are in their home too. Once Annabelle, the person, not the doll, breaks in, she picks up the doll and says it looks nice. Shit kind of goes down for a little bit, and while Annabelle's bleeding out, she writes an A on the wall while holding it. And this is where the doll becomes haunted until they change their mind in Annabelle creation. Afterwards, Mia, John, and their new baby Leah move into an LA apartment. So clearly Dauberman can write at least a little bit, just not when he has to bend the story around all the real events this movie's based on. The rest of the scares in this movie don't work. There are two ways this movie will try to spook you going forward. With the doll and with the demon. There are a few instances of decent scares with the demon, like the one on the stairs and the one in the storage room, but besides those, it just isn't implemented well. Those work because they're kind of teasing you with what the demon looks like. We're only seeing them for a split second before they disappear, and that works. We know that something is in the dark staring at us, but we still don't understand anything about it, and that's scary. It's the good old fear of the unknown. Putting scenes like this in the movie every now and again is a really nice treat for the audience, but unfortunately, I can't stop catching Dauberman and Leonetti with their hand in the cookie jar. Just like with the single bad scare in The Conjuring, they're making the demon too tangible. It isn't scary once you get a good enough look at it, and we get about 40 chances to take a gander. I'm pretty sure I could kick that dude's ass. And maybe I'm just confident, right? Maybe I'm just awesome, but I don't think that's what you want your audience thinking at any point. And there's certainly people with bigger heads than me. Oh, surely. The doll isn't very scary either. There's a scene where the ghost of Annabelle runs at the door and transforms into an adult before attacking Mia, but I think it's lacking a little oomph. Although I'm not sure that even counts as like I don't even remember if the doll's in that scare. It might just be like a little ghost girl. I can't really think of anything else the doll does in this movie, since half the time the demon is just there as well, and that's what makes it scary. Everything else in here feels like a B horror movie. John and Mia aren't interesting enough to watch for an entire movie. John really doesn't do much, so I don't have much to talk about. He's a white guy with a housewife in 1967. You tell me that's interesting. Mia isn't a bad protagonist, but she isn't very good either. One of my main issues, honestly, is that her actress doesn't do a very good job of looking scared. In a horror movie where you and your newborn baby are getting harassed by a demon, I feel like she should look a little more alarmed than this. Actually, there's a scene later in the movie where Mia picks up the Annabelle doll and slams it around before the doll tricks her into thinking it was her baby. And that scene is genuinely incredibly effective. The problem is that now I know this is a workable plot, and now I know this actress can act. And then they just don't. I don't know how Leonetti got that much emotion out of her, and I don't know how Dauberman managed to infinite monkey theorem his way through writing a whole scene, but it literally never happens again. At some point, Mia goes to look for help, since a demon wants her baby and all. This is where we meet Evelyn, who is our resident magical Negro. She's a colored lady who knows about ghosts and demons and spirits, and she has a dead daughter, and then that's it. That's her character. Believe it or not, the finale isn't good either. It's gonna be a start of a long trend of bad endings. The demon starts attacking for real this time, and just in case I haven't clarified, the demon's after a soul, so it's gonna kidnap the baby to trick Mia into bargaining with hers. The finale is essentially an extended haunted house segment, but it culminates with Mia preparing to offer herself to the demon, while Evelyn and John try to stop her. But remember, Evelyn already has a dead kid, so she sacrifices herself, and then the movie ends. That's all we needed Evelyn for. She doesn't do anything else during the finale. This is mildly set up. During the movie, she's projecting her dead kid onto Leah, so I understand her willingness to make that sacrifice. But I wish her character had at least one other thing to do. For the whole finale, John and her are locked out of the apartment until the last second, where she offs herself. While Annabelle isn't awful, there's definitely been a dramatic step down in quality from that first Conjuring movie. And that's because there wasn't a greater desire to tell a story here. For an hour and 45 minutes, except for at most 2 scenes, we were going through the motions. This movie could have been about Annabelle, but it ended up being about the doll from The Conjuring and its demon, if that makes sense. But luckily, once you're down, the only way you can go is back up. And then you go down and you plateau for a second, and then it's straight down from there. It's straight down from there. While overall I'd say that it's probably a little weaker than the first, The Conjuring 2 is, I think, my favorite of the franchise. We're peaking early. There are several challenges that come with writing a direct sequel to a critically acclaimed horror film, but I think that they managed to pick the best possible setup they could have. The real story they're basing this movie on is the Enfield haunting. There's really no avoiding it. When I was recording this, I accidentally switched the names of the mother and the oldest daughter, Margaret and Peggy. I only refer to Peggy as Margaret like twice, because I only talk about her twice in this section, so I'm just gonna leave it instead of re-recording the lines and dealing with that. My bad. In August of 1977, Margaret Hodgson began reporting paranormal occurrences in her household. Margaret and her children, Peggy, Janet, Johnny, and Billy, began to experience random noises, knocking, all the archetypal ghosty shit, until they called the Bobbies. However, once the police arrived, they couldn't do anything to help, except for officially write down that they witnessed furniture moving. This was like a big deal. Because people in the late 70s didn't have anything better to do, word spread around, and the Enfield poltergeist began to make a name for itself. This is one of the most heavily documented cases of paranormal activity that I'm aware of, and unfortunately, it was likely a sham. I say as far as I'm aware of because I'm scared some dude's gonna be like, you don't know about the Spookum Magookum haunting of fucking 1924. The main investigators you need to know here are Morris Gross, it's fucked up we have the same first name by the way, and Guy Lyon Playfair. These two consistently monitored the home and are key witnesses to several events. Despite the mounts of evidence pointing to the fact that Janet and her siblings were pranking everyone, Playfair and Gross were certain that they couldn't be faking all of the paranormal events. This is the sort of local interest story that makes the papers and the telly, or however people hear about weird stuff. So of course Ed and Lorraine Warren wanted in. The Warrens bought into the myth and traveled across the pond to investigate for a bit. They said it was real, but I think you know that they can't really be trusted as sources on this shit. I was thinking about waiting to tell you this, but at one point, the girls admitted to reporters that the haunting was a prank. Gross and Playfair ended up getting the girls to retract this statement, but the damage was done. There just wasn't enough evidence pointing to this haunting being real, and there was so much pointing to the girls staging things. I think this is a really smart case to tackle in your movie about infamous ghost hunters. The Conjuring, at the end of the day, is an imagining of what it'd be like if the Warrens really were ghost hunters. Examining one of the most public and also batshit cases of paranormal activity under this lens is a really natural direction to take the franchise. It's a concept that builds onto itself seemingly effortlessly. Possession in this franchise works by isolating a target and breaking them down until they're ready to be taken over. Janet, the one at the center of the haunting this time, is the perfect character to follow through the situation. Imagine everyone knowing about the really shit situation you're in, wanting to know as much about it as possible, and then calling you crazy despite wanting more. It's a really unique kind of misery to watch someone go through, and the kid playing Janet nails it. James Wan also managed to show how this haunting is genuinely supernatural while making sure the investigating characters aren't getting enough proof to prove it. It kind of puts the audience in the same situation the family's in, where we know it's real, but we can't do anything about it, except ask for people to believe us. The movie split into two halves for a while, with the Enfield plot and the Warren plot. Everything that happens in England is actually fire. The old man ghost is so weird, and he has an almost otherworldly feeling. It's actually really awesome. The haunting starts out subtly, but once it amps up, it amps up. I love that poster silhouette scene. I love the levitation scenes. Everyone loves the Crooked Man stuff. They're just killing it every single time they come up to bat. It's later in the movie, but there's a scene where Ed is interviewing Janet and the old man ghost. Ed has to look away or the ghost won't talk. And once the focus shifts over to Ed, we see Janet's head shape change into the old man's in the blur. That is good ghost horror. That's how you do it. I like the Hodgson family enough, but this film is clearly more focused on Janet and Margaret, which is fine by me. Focusing more on Janet gives us something a little stronger to tie us to that half of the plot. And since it's split for almost the entire film, I think it's probably the better option. The family in The Conjuring 1 is definitely written more like a family than this one, but that's a result of the kind of story they're trying to tell. The first Conjuring movie is about a family being terrorized by a ghost. This movie is about a cross-continent scandal haunting put on by a demon to kill Ed specifically. Explaining the Warren plot like that probably is a little weird, so let me clarify. There's not just a ghost in the Enfield house, there's 3. I guess, like, technically 2. Some demon is using the old man ghost in the Enfield house to lure Ed and Lorraine to England so it can kill Ed. And that demon is the nun. This is a really good idea. By letting the old man ghost steal the show for the most part, and also letting the movie play with the idea of the haunting being fake, we don't see the nun very often. Until the finale, we only see her when Lorraine has a vision back in America. This is how you counter that overexposure problem. Keep the big scary ghosts that are the real threats in the shadows until it's absolutely necessary. You shouldn't see the hands of the puppet master pulling the strings, if that makes sense. Ed wants to get involved in the case because they don't run from people who need help, but Lorraine had a vision of Ed's death and is now seeing the nun everywhere, so she's incredibly hesitant. This side of the plot has some good scares, but if you don't like Ed and Lorraine, you won't get much out of it. They're also using the nun about as well as they can in these scenes. It's just that I've seen the Nun and the Nun 2, so I don't think I'll ever be scared of this character again. While we're on the topic, Ed and Lorraine certainly could have been worse. Weirdly enough, when they're not on screen together, they're written better. When they talk to Janet separately, they end up telling her the same story to comfort her, and stuff like that is cute. That's about all I've got to compliment them on as a duo. Something about them just feels off this time. They're lacking in written and natural chemistry. Unfortunately. Separately though, they aren't that bad. Lorraine is the best part of the less interesting half of the movie. Her powers are cool, but she stops being able to use them once they get to England because the nun is blocking her. And as a result, she's just kind of there. I think we can probably give her something to do, guys. Surely she knows how to work some of the equipment. I'd love to see a version of the film where Lorraine gets more invested in the case because of this. Her whole life, no one believed her when she said she saw spirits, until she met Ed anyway, and that was so important that she married him. Make her conflicted about wanting the haunting to be real. Ed is here too, I guess. His only character flaw in the movie is that he wants to help too much. It lends itself to the story, but I would certainly enjoy something with a little more substance to it. Especially for the guy whose survival is the crux of the film. Unfortunately, the finale's the worst part of the movie. Things start happening just to happen, so it's kind of fun, but the more you think about the finale, the more problems you'll have with it. Right before the finale, the nun forces Janet to get caught faking a paranormal event, so the investigators leave. Why do this? How does that help you? My best guess is that dissuading the investigators would keep the church from getting involved, but she's already doing insane shit just keep gaslighting them. Weirdly enough, this is something that kind of happened in real life, and I think this is where the movie's losing the plot. In real life, at least on one occasion, Janet was caught bending spoons and blaming it on the ghosts. So I get why you include this in the movie, but why do it here? Including this plot point this late in the game kind of just throws an unnecessary wrinkle in the movie, especially when the Warrens were already planning on leaving the next day. I know Janet really faked evidence, but the idea behind these movies is to look at the cases as if they were real. Why even address this, honestly? It's not like you're gonna address the fact that Ed and Lorraine faked shit. The nun is using Janet as bait to lure Ed and Lorraine back into the house so she can kill Ed. And once they return, they get split up. Ed is inside and Lorraine is outside. For some reason, the nun was using the crooked man to chase Ed around, even though he was already walking to exactly where it wanted him. Because Lorraine is stuck out there, she tries to figure out the nun's name so she'll have power over the demon. It turns out that in one of the scenes from earlier, the nun essentially wrote it down for her. So she pulls out the same torn up Bible she wrote it down in, and we find out her name is Valak. Why did the nun tell her? I don't know. Why doesn't the nun kill Ed before Lorraine can run up and send her back to hell? I don't know! How does knowing the demon's name give you power over it? It's probably in the Bible somewhere, man, don't worry about it. My main issue with the finale is that it's dragged out for so long, and then it just ends like that. Maybe we should have given the crooked man scene to Lorraine when she was coming to stop Valak. Valak already knows she knows the name, but Lorraine just gets a free pass to run up the stairs and tell it to fuck off. Also, there's not an exorcism. She just tells it to leave and it does. I know I just complained for a while, but I genuinely really adore this movie. Even with all the issues I've outlined here, I'd still probably put it somewhere in my top 15 horror movies? I'd say 15. So now what? After The Conjuring 2, every memory I have of this franchise is stained with the bitter taste of disappointment. I could only remember the franchise going downhill from here. And of course, I could remember how steep that slope was. But sometimes, my memory isn't perfect. Annabelle Creation is a much better movie than Annabelle 2014. First and foremost, this is not based on a true story. Just like with the first Annabelle movie, and also like the third, this movie was written by Gary Dauberman. The difference here is that he has free reign to do whatever he wants. This movie is an origin story for the doll before the origin story we already saw. So as far as I'm aware, there's no real connection to actual events. Without including those, Dauberman managed to put together a largely coherent script with only a couple issues. As, you know, annoying as I may find them. Once upon a time, there was a little girl named Annabelle. Her dad was a super skilled doll maker, and her mom was there too, I suppose. One day, they're having car issues, and Annabelle goes, "Hey dad, have you ever played Frogger before?" And he's like, "It's 1958, I don't get that reference." And then she gets slammed by a truck. We jump ahead by a decent amount of time and follow Janice and Linda. They're orphans, and they're moving into Annabelle's parents' house with some other orphans and a nun. One evening, Janice finds herself in Annabelle's old room, and after opening the spooky closet, she finds herself experiencing some pretty spooky stuff. The characters in this movie aren't bad. Linda and Janice make a pretty fun leading duo. They're both great child actors, and they look scared when they need to. It's more than I can say about the actors in Annabelle, so we're off to a great start. Watching Janice start to interact with Annabelle is really fun for a while, at least until the demon ruins it. Linda's fun, but I just don't have much to say about her. She sets up the best creepy doll moment in the movie. She shoots Annabelle with the toy gun, and then it looks back at her in a really eerie way. Janice and Linda work pretty well together. The monologues they give about never being separated are a little much for me, but otherwise, they feel like well-written friends. Once things start to ramp up, they trade dolls, that way they feel less lonely. And like, that's cute. As endearing as they are, neither of them really develop as characters through the movie. I'll talk about what happens with Janice later, but by the end, Linda's pretty much the same as she started. If you wrote these characters, they could be interesting, but as is, they do their job as well as they need to. The other orphans are just kind of there. The older girls exist to be mean to Janice. We don't know why they don't fuck with a disabled kid, but they don't, and that's pretty much all they get. It's a shame, because if you give them some real character, the movie improves drastically. At least Linda and Janice wouldn't just be dealing with stock older girl bullies, you know? I also don't know any of their names. I feel like I'm obligated to tell you that when that happens. Sister Charlotte's fine. I just don't have much to say about her. She seems nice. It's probably a good quality for a nun to have. Can you imagine if there was an evil nun? That'd be pretty fucked up and scary. Annabelle's parents work well enough. Samuel and Esther Mullins are Annabelle's parents, and in their old age, they've opened up their home to a bunch of orphaned kids, which is cool. The weird thing is, it seems like they don't want them there. The mom is in a room the entire time because of demon doll related injuries, and the dad doesn't interact with the kids unless it's absolutely necessary. As far as I'm aware, no one's forcing them to host these orphans, so that's a little strange. I think they were trying to make Samuel feel distant, but it kind of feels like they just forgot to write him lines, which is really disappointing when you consider that his story started on such a powerful note. Speaking of which, Annabelle's a really good ghost. Ignoring my hilarious Frogger joke earlier, I think that making Annabelle a roadside cross is a really good idea. It's sad, it's really, like, frighteningly real, honestly. That shit happens. After her death, her parents were praying to whatever would listen to see their daughter again, and unfortunately, it was a demon. That's why they locked up the doll. This is good demon lore. The parents weren't stupid enough to summon a demon, they were desperate enough to believe anything and ended up getting tricked. It's just lame that the script doesn't do anything with them. I also want to make sure I point out that the doll scares are really excellent this time. This is massively helped by the doll's design. This is the best Annabelle will ever look, and they managed to give her some genuinely really well set up scares. Enjoy it while it lasts. All things considered, this movie was doing an excellent job for like 50 minutes. And then the lamest thing I could have possibly imagined happened. Janice is in Annabelle's room when she sees her ghost, not the doll, and Annabelle goes, "Will you help me?" And Janice goes, "What do you need?" What is the first thing you thought of? Your soul. Dude, what are we doing here? It also doesn't help that this scene ends in possibly the funniest way ever. Obviously, the moment itself is a little silly, but it's that same issue of overexposure. What's interesting is that they have a similar sort of scare later where we see her from behind and she starts contorting to grow larger. Do that here! This scene erased pretty much all of the goodwill I had built up for this movie. And once the tone was shattered, it never recovered for me. Looking at the demon never inspired any fear or anxiety, it inspired me to yell, "Get this dude off the screen." You wanna know how bananas this movie gets once the demon is just out? Annabelle's mom gets cut in half. I'm zooming in, but her legs aren't there off screen. The finale consists of watching the orphans go through haunted house segments, watching the parents get done obnoxiously dirty, and also Janice is possessed and running around with a knife or something. I don't care about the orphans that aren't named Linda or Janice, so the haunted house sections ring a little hollow. Janice running around with a knife is fine and all, but it's honestly kind of weird that she does. Annabelle already took possession of her. She already has the soul she wants, right? I'm not even sure I understand why the demon's terrorizing everyone if it just wanted Janice, but we need a finale, I guess. The demon's plans only get more confusing as the credits get closer. Sister Charlotte locks Janice and the doll in the spooky closet, and then everyone runs out of the house. But when police investigate, they find the doll alone. Janice is at a different orphanage, and we see her meet Mr. and Mrs. Higgins. They ask for her name, and she tells them that it's Annabelle. And then we flash forward 12 years to the first Annabelle movie where we see her murder her parents next door to Mia and John. I think this is cool in theory, but it goes on for just a little too long. Speaking of which, does this movie work with Annabelle 2014? I mean, technically yes, but it's a pretty strange set of circumstances. Everything in Annabelle creation happens, including Janice, now possessed by the demon, leaving the Annabelle doll behind at the Mullins house. Janice gets adopted by the Higgins and lives her entire life possessed, eventually joining a cult. Mia and John move in next door to the Higgins, and shortly after, Janice, of course now Annabelle, comes back to murder her parents. They break into Mia's house next, and Annabelle finds the doll again. The demon goes back into the doll and harasses Mia until Evelyn sacrifices herself. They get rid of the doll, which is still possessed despite already having the soul it wanted, only for it to be bought at a thrift store and given to the nurses from the start of The Conjuring. Like, technically that works, but I'm sure we could have come up with something a little more streamlined. There's also no implication that the family in Annabelle 2014 came upon the doll via supernatural influences, so it is a sheer coincidence that it ended up in the house next door to Annabelle's adoptive parents. This movie is probably a little better than I'm giving it credit for, but that one scare left such a sour taste in my mouth, and unfortunately, in my opinion, the movie didn't do enough to recover. Even then, I'd still say it's probably the third best in the franchise, but there's been a dramatic drop in quality. Like, The Conjuring 1 is like up here, The Conjuring 2 is like here, and then Annabelle creation can go like here, and everything else is like here or lower. There's also an end credit scene teasing the nun, which is insane work.
Y'all seen her? Alright, cool. She's just playing hide and seek, that's all it is. Alright, hey, I seen you, alright.
This is where we start to slide downhill a little bit faster. I'm not even sure how long I'll be able to talk about it since this movie doesn't have a point to it. I guess that's a little unfair. The point of The Nun 2018 is that the nun is evil, and she's right behind you! Ah! I don't think that's enough to make a movie out of either. Before I get started, I went looking through some interviews to see if I could find clips of anyone saying something stupid about the movie, like earlier. And the best thing I could find was this clip of James Wan describing the setting.
Nun, for me, has a very different look to the whole film, and even down to the medieval sort of horror setting in Eastern European during the 1950s. I don't think I've seen like a mainstream medieval horror, and I don't know why, that is so exciting. It's almost like classic Hammer horror film, or classic Italian horror film that I haven't seen in a long
The
time.
nun is unsealed by a bomb in World War II. The only way you could be more off is if you said the medieval period was happening right now. The nun is honestly filler. Like I said earlier, the point of this movie is that the nun is evil. This guy Frenchie, his name is also Maurice by the way, is delivering some Postmates to the local nun sorority house, or whatever it's called. When he gets there though, he finds a nun hanging above the front steps. The Vatican hears this and sends Father Burke and Sister Irene to investigate. Begin nun shenanigans for an hour and a half. Every character in this movie is below average. Sister Irene is a big missed opportunity. She's our main character in this film and she's like 85% nun, she just hasn't taken her vows yet. Unfortunately, Taissa Farmiga doesn't look very scared in this movie, but otherwise she's doing her best to pull her weight. Just like Lorraine, she's sort of psychic, but everyone in the movie is having rapid and extreme paranormal encounters, so there's not much to make her feel special. But this movie takes this idea for a character and does nothing with it. She doesn't really develop or be interesting at all. If Father Burke functions properly, I just wish they gave him some more to do, but I don't think it'd make his character much better. The only thing I really got from him is that he likes to ponder and he's probably Catholic. Burke's lore is that he tried to exorcise a kid and it ended up with the kid dying. This makes Burke a tortured priest figure, which isn't the worst idea for a supporting character in this movie. It just sucks that they don't do anything with him that isn't dumb and or predictable. Frenchie frustrates the shit out of me. Do you want to know what his lines sound like?
If you ask me, these crosses that surround the abbey, they keep the evil in, not out.
Let those above ground know you have made a mistake.
I think being here is a mistake.
This place is... What's the opposite of a miracle, Father?
I'm stopping here because I'm kind. The only other thing I remember him doing is hitting on Irene before he finds out she's a nun and being a nice enough dude. Fuck, dude. I don't want to have to talk about this shit again. There's not much point in me putting it off any longer, so I'll rip the band-aid off. The nun is a sucky ghost. She sucks so hard, and not even in the fun way, or the freaky way. Just like in The Conjuring 2, she has some henchmen ghosts so that she can be in the background. Every nun in the abbey is a ghost. Father Burke gets harassed by that kid, and there's probably one or two more. While they could have let the lesser ghost shine a little more, Dauberman and Juan decided to simply put the nun everywhere in this movie. Every scare in this movie is the nun creeping behind one of our main characters. She's supposed to be in the background of the plot, guys, not in the background of every scene. It'd be so cool if she did at least one other thing in this movie, but that simply isn't allowed, I suppose. People were lacking in good scares during the medieval times, after all. I know I'm cracking a lot of jokes, so let me be a little more serious here for a moment. If you're one of the people that is genuinely scared of the nun, that's okay. I also hope you're doing well without Recess anymore. For some reason, she's helping out the heroes. At one point, Father Burke is alone and gets attacked by the little kid ghost. He's pushed into an open grave and is immediately buried. Don't piss me off, guy. Don't piss me off. He's pushed into an open grave and is immediately buried underground. Once Irene gets him out, they look in the coffin and it turns out the nun left them all the books they need to pass the midterm. She gives them everything they need to know, including her name. I don't know why. You know, the cool thing about having a psychic character is that you can cheat and just give them whatever information they need. They literally do this in the movie, by the way. That vision, dream, nightmare thing where she hears Mary points the way ends up being the clue they need to find the MacGuffin. They just did this so we could get the info dump next scene. The nun's power scaling is insane, by the way. She does stuff like bury Father Burke in an instant and then refuses to ever be this efficient again. Valak is defeated in this movie because she tries to drown Irene and gets counterplayed. I don't know why she picked the slowest way you could possibly kill someone with your bare hands. This is only gonna get worse than the nun too, by the way. Frenchie, Father Burke, and Sister Irene are inside the abbey and looking for the blood of Christ so they can defeat the nun. While they're looking for the blood, they stumble upon a statue of Mary with a beam of light pointing out of her finger. And they have the nerve to go, oh, it's Mary points the way. Did you think this was smart? The nun starts attacking and it's looking pretty bad. So she's choking Irene, like half drowning her or whatever, and it looks like she's dead. But Irene was faking her out. She spits the blood of Christ into Valak's face and the nun is defeated forever. Or so they thought, those idiots. When Frenchie was alone earlier, the nun possessed him. So despite her loss, she's now free to do whatever. We also flash forward about 20 years, and we see Ed and Lorraine talking about Frenchie when Carolyn showed up looking for them in the first Conjuring. That's kinda neat. I really hope the Nun 2 doesn't fuck that up. I'm not sure if I can adequately explain just how hollow this movie is. While I was watching it, there was a feeling that something was missing. And honestly, that something had been for a minute. The problem is that I was trying to figure out what made the nun unscary without thinking about why the good ghosts in this series are scary. In The Conjuring 1, it's sort of implied that the parents moved into the home due to financial instability, and Carolyn is shown to be the homemaker. Additionally, Bathsheba is haunting the family because they moved into the house on her land. Her land? She's their landlord, guys. Bathsheba is representative of how Carolyn sees her financial problems. Ever present, suffocating, overpowering and scary. She always knows it's there, she knows it's coming for her children, and she knows there isn't anything she can do to stop it. At least not without some help. Sadly, as we go forward, what the ghosts represent becomes more and more vague. The old man ghost in the Enfield haunting could represent Janet's feelings towards her father, but it's a little underdeveloped. The idea that Janet's father ran out is certainly present in the film, but it's not very core to what's going on here. Half of the movie is focused on what's going on in America, and once Ed and Lorraine get involved in England, the movie stops being focused on Janet. This isn't a movie about a family being haunted, it's about the nuns' plan to get Ed and how they survived that. The Annabelle movies are much weirder to analyze like this. In the first one, I don't think she has much point to her. She's a scary doll, guys, ooh-wee. If Annabelle Creation spent more time on the parents, it'd probably be about grief, but the parents don't have anything to do. As a result, it's just orphans running away from the doll. Granted, 2 of the orphans were well written, but the plot just wasn't very deep. So now we're here at the nun. What's the point of her? She's a nun that's evil. No, she's behind you! I'm not sure you guys will understand how well I'm describing this to you unless you've seen the movie. I'm just not a big fan of the nun, the movie or the character. I don't think that's a controversial take by any means. I honestly don't even have much to say about it as like a final thought. If you're thinking about watching The Nun, no, you're not. What's really fucked up is that the next 2 movies are arguably worse. I'm arguing they're worse. The Curse of La Llorona is bad, but it's more complicated than that. The writing in this movie is possibly the laziest of the franchise, except for Annabelle Comes Home, but that's lazy for like a different reason. This film is so devoid of personality, I fear it is the template. Way back in ye olde days, there was this really pretty Mexican lady whose husband cheated on her. She did the first thing she could think of and drowned her 2 kids before offing herself due to grief. Now she's a ghost. It's sometime in the Renaissance. Social worker Anna is social working when she separates a mother and her kids for their safety. Patricia, the mother, locked her kids in the closet, so yeah, that's not gonna look good. Anna's husband is dead, by the way. When police find Patricia's 2 kids drowned in the river, Anna's called to the scene for some reason. Since her husband is dead and not alive, she has to bring her 2 kids, Chris and Sam, along for the ride. Despite his mother's warning, Chris gets out of the car to snoop and runs into La Llorona, and she grabs his arm and marks it before vanishing. Haunting shenanigans ensue. Can I tell you about my personal favorite scene in this movie? Sam is in the backyard during a thunderstorm, and she hears him crying and investigates, but doesn't find anything. After that, she decides to open her umbrella where she sees La Llorona. She gets trolled for a minute, grabbed by La Llorona and marked, and then La Llorona dips. I want to give you context for this scene, but that's literally all of it. I don't know what Sam is doing outside. I assume playing? That's something children do in a thunderstorm, probably. She's out here to get spooked by this ghost, and that is it. You can seriously pluck this scene out of the movie and show it off, and you wouldn't lose anything. Also, for some reason, this 7-year-old doesn't tell her mom about the ghost she saw in the backyard. Also, she'll be completely calm and okay with being alone after this. There's a lot of scenes like this, actually. The immediate context is all that matters. For the entire movie, scenes will just flat out ignore each other. It's honestly remarkable the story's even slightly coherent. We're too zoomed in right now, so let's scoot back a bit. The issue isn't just one bad scene or character, it's a general lack of detail. Also effort. This movie doesn't have character writing at all. I honestly can't tell you anything distinct about Anna, Chris, or Sam. The dead dad has more personality, and all I know about him is that he is dead and was a cop. The problem is that as a film, it's more concerned with La Llorona doing stuff to the family than it is with the family. Ed and Lorraine aren't in this movie, so they can't steal the spotlight from the victims. But instead of focusing on them, we just put it all on the ghost instead. Now that the focus has entirely shifted to the ghost, it doesn't even feel like it's in the same universe. This movie feels like preteen bait. It's got a gimmicky ghost and characters made of cardboard for her to throw around. I just don't get why you'd write something for 13-year-olds and make it inaccessible to them by making the film rated R. The real rough spot is the family as a unit. I know that horror movie characters tend to be a bit dumber than you and I, but these guys genuinely aren't human. Chris and Sam get the same burn marks when they see La Llorona for the first time. That's how she's marking them. I get why Chris doesn't tell his mom, since he snuck out of the car when he wasn't supposed to, but in what world does Sam not say anything? She's 7 and was attacked unprompted haunted by a ghost in her backyard. I could still understand that if she talked to Chris about it, but she doesn't even talk to him. They got attacked by La Llorona together earlier in the movie. Later in the movie, Chris falls down the stairs and goes to the hospital, where the doctor finds his La Llorona burn. Since she may be abusing her kids, CPS interviews them. At this point, Anna kind of knows that ghostly stuff is going on. She's also already put together the fact that Patricia's kids, before they were drowned, had the same burn marks. You know what she does with all that info? Anyway, it's just insane that after recognizing all the burn marks, she isn't talking to them about what happened. Anna knows that she isn't abusing them, but I guess she doesn't really care? The social worker, by the way. This is the most disjointed the family's ever felt in one of these movies, and it's because they are just related. I swear these characters don't know each other. Also, they are the most calm people I've ever seen in a horror movie. I hate to say it, but La Llorona's a bad ghost too. She's so bland, you guys. You can genuinely swap her out with any other ghost character you've ever seen, and the story doesn't change. She's essentially the nun in Spanish. We also don't know why she's doing most of this. We learn at some point that she's after Chris and Sam because Patricia asked her for a solid, but otherwise La Llorona is just doing shit to pad the runtime. I've mentioned she's marking them, but I can't tell you why she's doing that. It doesn't come back up, ever, and it's not like she just can't kill them anyway. There's not a real progression in the haunting. La Llorona starts at 100 and stays there for the whole movie. At multiple points, she's fully throwing adults around the room. You can't convince me she couldn't just grab the kids from the get-go. During the finale, she grabs Sam and flings her around the building to drown her. But why not just drown her in the trailer scene? Or why not drown her in the bathtub scene when you were already drowning her? Also, this scene of a 7-year-old bathing goes on for a really long time, especially for a scene that doesn't really add anything. It's not scary, it's not tense, and it's the other trailer scene. It's just like the pool earlier, there's no context to it. Drown her in the kitchen sink or something, or make the scene have impact. I'm not just gonna tease you with that silly ass shot. We can talk about the bad finale. This is possibly the worst constructed finale in the entire franchise. They've enlisted Father Raphael to help them with their ghost problem. He's fine. And after they've already been dealing with the ghost for a while, they manage to get it outside of the house. Raphael places some beads across the front door as a barrier that'll keep La Llorona out. So after they catch their breath for a second, Chris realizes they didn't put the beads on the back door, and La Llorona might get in. Chris, Anna, and Raphael rush to keep it shut, you know, because if it opens all the way, the ghost might get in. Sam realizes that her doll is missing, and when she looks outside, she sees it perfectly placed on the front patio. While her family and Raphael are actively screaming and trying to shut the door, she decides it'd probably be fine to open the door and reach out there. I don't know what to tell you, man. They're being serious right now. Just as Anna sees her and freaks out, Sam grabs the doll and runs back towards her mom, but she dragged it, so it broke the line of beads. While we're here, they decide to sprinkle on just a little extra stupid. Once they save Sam, Raphael says that since La Llorona had her in a grasp, she's cooked. If La Llorona calls, she will go to her. Essentially, Sam is a drone at this point. You want something crazy though? For the rest of the movie, she's scared of La Llorona. Why are you scared now? You've been calm this whole time. I just don't understand why this movie likes to lie. Why drop this line in here if you're gonna actively ignore it for the rest of the finale? Anyway, they beat La Llorona by stabbing her with a cross. Movie over. One thing I'll give this movie is that its finale is certainly fun, but I think that's because I was watching it with my girlfriend and one of my best friends, and we were all at least a little tipsy. I can't imagine if you're watching this alone, you'll get anything other than a migraine. Unless maybe you're a little tipsy. I know we all like to shit on The Nun as third-rate horror, but can we spread the love around a little bit? I'm being so serious, this is the worst this franchise ever gets. Annabelle Comes Home genuinely grinds my gears. Like, you know how serious something has to be for me to use grinds my gears? This shit grinds my gears. I wonder who wrote this one. Oh, it's Gary Dauberman. Oh, and he directed it. Fuck. We start the movie by watching Ed and Lorraine as they bring Annabelle home. Lorraine figures out the doll is summoning other spirits to it, so that's probably not good. Anyway, we jump ahead by a couple of years. Judy Warren is psychic like her mother, and she's like 10 or something? I don't know. Whatever age she looks like, go ahead and add 1 to that number since this movie takes place around her birthday. Since her parents are out of town working on a case, it's just Judy and her babysitter Mary Ellen tonight. And this is where Gary Dauberman's problems start. If it's about Judy and Mary Ellen, how are we gonna get Annabelle involved in the plot? She's kept under lock and key. Judy knows not to mess with the stuff in the occult room, and Mary Ellen knows not to mess with the ghost stuff too. Someone has to make something happen or we won't have a movie here. Well, allow me to introduce you to possibly the worst character in any horror movie ever. This is Daniela. Daniela is possibly the worst character in any horror movie ever. I don't think she's the sole reason this movie sucks, but she's like 60, maybe 70% of it. Daniela is Dauberman's excuse to make a movie, and unfortunately, it isn't a very good one. She's Mary Ellen's friend, and she's really interested in the fact that Mary Ellen's babysitting at the Warrens. Daniela invites herself over to the Warrens' house because it's Judy's birthday, and convinces Mary Ellen to take her outside for a minute so they miss her snooping around the house. The haunted room is obviously locked, so she breaks into Ed and Lorraine's office and looks around until she finds the keys. She gets into the occult museum and just touches everything. I'll tell you why she's doing this, just because I don't think it'll really help her case at all. Her dad died in a car accident recently, and she was the one driving, so it's all her fault. Daniela thinks that because there's a bunch of haunted items in the room, she might be able to contact her dad if she calls out. So she just starts asking if anyone's in the room with her, because no other ghosts are in the Warrens' occult museum. It's certainly your dad. She sees the Annabelle doll, so of course she's gonna put her paws all over that shit. The warnings all over the door feel almost intentionally silly. This girl believes in ghosts enough to think there's merit in searching for her dad here, and then proceeds to ignore every warning in existence just to touch the doll. We seriously couldn't find a better way to get the movie going? This is what people mean when they say characters are dumb for the sake of plot. What human being thinks like this? Oh, but Daniela's just a plot device. Surely she isn't the main character of the movie. Daniela is practically the main character of the movie. Annabelle Comes Home is much more focused on her dicking around in the Warrens' ghost storage than it needs to be, and it takes up so much time. This is not helped by the film's incessant need to call back to literally everything Daniela touches in the room. She's the only character that gets an arc, or any character writing at all. Her arc is realizing that her dad's death wasn't her fault, which is strange in a movie where the plot is 100% her fault entirely. Unfortunately, she isn't uniquely poorly written, she just has the most screen time. Judy is the psychic character in this film, and she doesn't do anything, so she's just written to be an awkward kid. They do a fine enough job of showing us that she's used to seeing ghosts, so that's neat. It isn't much, but I'm glad she's got something. Mary Ellen is nice and that's it. There's also a character named Bob who's got balls.
Bob's got balls. How you doing? Bob's got balls.
Bob's got balls. Nice.
Bob's got balls.
Yep.
No kidding.
Surprise, surprise, the ghosts in this movie aren't very intimidating either. Annabelle has never been less intimidating. Possibly my most lukewarm take, but now that we're 3 movies in, I'd say most of us are desensitized to how the doll looks. But it doesn't help that this has to be the worst design she ever has. The first doll's alright, but it just isn't very creepy. The second doll looks old and worn, which is perfect. Combining that refined look with the better doll usage made it really effective until they fucked up the tone. This is an American Girl doll. It's not just that she looks less scary, they overhype Annabelle so hard. Watch as the most evil doll in the history of evilness fails to kill 3 teens and a 10-year-old. Are you scared yet? The bigger problem is that this isn't a movie per se, it's a sampler platter for ghosts. I've loosely referenced the plot here and there, but the elevator pitch of the film is that Annabelle is loose in the Warrens' home and is waking up the other ghosts from the occult room. Do you remember when The Conjuring 2 came out and everyone loved the Crooked Man, and then we all got really excited for that spin-off movie about him that never happened? This movie's goal is to inspire that sort of feeling. Each thing Daniela touches in the Warrens' occult room represents a potential spin-off movie, and the more gimmicky the ghost, the better. Man, do you remember the typewriter ghost in Annabelle Comes Home? That shit was tight! I wonder how that ended up in the same room as Annabelle. I sure hope they make a movie out of that. I know that example's a little silly, but I know that they so desperately wanted people to ask for a movie about the ferryman, or a movie about the bride ghost, or the TV ghost, or the samurai ghost. I can keep going, but I don't want to scrub through all the footage for every stupid scene in the movie. The ferryman is 2 steps away from being the bye-bye man. That's the quality of ghost we're working with here, which it makes me feel like I'm going insane because it's rated R. Why are you pitching me ghosts for freshmen in high school? I decided to look around online, and in an interview, the producer for the series, Peter Safran, said that frequently the audience tells you what the next one should be. When we did The Conjuring 2, we all thought the Crooked Man would be the next one out of the gate. We just loved it. It's a great character. Instead, the audience was so fascinated by the nun, and so many people were directly messaging James about what was her origin, who is she, where did she come from? There's just a real fascination, so it was clear that, in fact, should be the next one. It's not that we won't do the Crooked Man, you just have to balance out the demand. So we have ideas of what we want to do beyond this from the artifacts room, but I suspect the audience will tell us exactly what we should be doing. Well, this isn't inherently bad. It's kind of crazy to release a movie with the apparent goal of tricking us into test screening your next flick. There's a very real possibility that isn't why they made this movie. Dauberman could just be dog shit at his job. Dauberman could just be dog shit at his job. But when the movie insists on wasting my time by showing me ghost ideas nonstop, I kind of can't come to any other conclusion. This is a test screening experience, and that's honestly kind of heartbreaking when we think about how we got here. I'll tell you what though, as a real fan of these movies, I'll tell you which of the ghosts from the artifact room you should make your next movie out of. None of them. Ah, yes, The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. This film is uniquely kind of sad. Sure, The Nun is dog shit, and Annabelle Comes Home is the worst thing this franchise will hopefully ever produce. But this is the first time a Conjuring movie was bad. I guess maybe bad isn't the right word. This is the first time a Conjuring movie was unremarkable. This movie's an hour and 52 minutes long, and you could watch it from start to finish if you really wanted to, but I don't think there's anything to gain from that experience. The Conjuring movies used the Warrens' files to tell the stories of families enduring paranormal crises, and the characters inside those stories felt wonderfully authentic. Janet's my favorite character in that regard, but the entire family from the first movie does a really fantastic job of feeling real. This is lost in The Devil Made Me Do It. I can't tell you anything about David, Debbie, or Arnie. Because our haunting victims aren't written, this movie feels criminally slow. There are a bunch of scenes that are individually kind of boring, but it's more interesting to look at the bigger picture. The silent killer of The Conjuring 3 is the switch in focus from the victims completely to Ed and Lorraine. The case here is about Arnie Johnson, who in real life stabbed a man and claimed he was possessed by a demon. This is again a real case the Warrens investigated, and with their help, Johnson was only convicted of first-degree manslaughter, so they did something, probably. Weirdly enough, we start out the movie during David's exorcism. This sounds like a nice enough idea, but in execution, it sort of robs the victims of a chance to be characters. We don't know what these people are like when they aren't being terrorized by spirits, so I personally never got invested in them. I can't force myself to talk about them any longer. I'd tell you to watch the movie yourself, but you wouldn't learn anything I haven't told you just now. They're looking for what possessed Arnie, and it turns out it was a demon sent by a witch. This movie will now stop giving a shit about Arnie and switch tracks to the Ed and Lorraine train as they try to hunt down that witch. I'm simplifying, of course, but once the Warrens start looking for a culprit, the movie's essentially all about them. This change makes the movie feel completely different from the early Conjuring films. We're watching Ed and Lorraine 1 right now. This was a genuine mistake. The problem isn't that the script is poorly written or that the actors feel awkward with one another. It's both. The scenes between Ed and Lorraine feel like they exist to remind us they're in a relationship. We know! You don't need to keep telling us! Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga feel like they're ready to be done with this franchise at this point, and I can't say I blame them. Looking at them individually makes it even worse, honestly. Lorraine is straight up awful here. Vera Farmiga looks bored in every shot of the movie. Her powers are also insane this time. There's one scene where I think they're used well, and it wouldn't be fair of me not to mention that. At one point, she's in the woods reliving someone's last moments, and it's pretty cool to watch Ed chase her around in the real world while she's seeing everything. Good job, guys. Otherwise, though, it ranges from boring to almost absurd. When she's with the police, she starts flexing her powers by knowing things she shouldn't. She passes all of their tests, and she knows when the police are trying to mess with her.
You missed a turn. The spot where you found Katie's body. Back that way.
If she's checking the cops like this, she probably could have solved the mystery by herself an hour ago. Why are we watching bad Lorraine fan fiction? I'm gonna be honest, I don't think Ed even needs to be in this movie. If you gave me 15 minutes and a red pen, I could cut him out of the script entirely. Ed and Lorraine are tracking this witch down, but of course she knows that and is trying to stop him. These people cannot write a cat and mouse story. Also, her confirming there are active witches out there is kind of crazy, especially because there wasn't a witch in the real case. Ed and Lorraine said it was just a demon, so this is Lorraine fanfiction. Speaking of fanfiction, this witch is a disciple of the Ram cult, the same guys from Annabelle 2014, so why are we inserting them here? I'm sure at one point this was based on a true story, but now we're just getting weird. Stop referencing Annabelle! Stop referencing Annabelle all the time! The Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Me Do It, is remarkably skippable. And honestly, I kind of wish that I had. There's nothing really to be gained here. I just kind of lost 2 hours of my life. And all the time it took to write this, and all the time it's gonna take to edit it, and this is my second time recording this segment. I guess I don't like this movie. I need you guys to hear me out here. This movie is not the catastrophe I could so easily pretend it is, but it is deeply unserious and it hits a point that pisses me off. Oh my goodness, the nun is back. Somehow she survived the end of the first movie and is moving westward across Europe. It's now up to Sister Irene and another nun named Sister Deborah to find out what's going on and put a stop to it. No surprise, the nun is still possessing Frenchie. He's working as a groundskeeper at a girls' Catholic school. There's a kid that he's friendly with, and he's probably boning her mom, who's one of the teachers, but I can't confirm or deny that. The movie follows Irene and Deborah as they make it to where Frenchie's at, and then they deal with the nun and everything ends up fine. This movie isn't complicated. In fact, I'd say it's probably the least complicated movie since the first Nun. Structurally, it works, but there isn't much to sink your teeth into. And because it's aggressively stupid, the movie kind of just comes off the wrong way. Everything related to the nun is just wonky. I'll describe the first scene of the movie for you. There's a kid and a priest. I figured it'd be easier to let you think of the joke. They're both at the church after hours when the kid sees a ghost in the basement. He runs back into the church and lo and behold, it's the nun. I need you to know I'm being literally 100% truthful with you. She proceeds to lift the priest up into the air, crucify him, and then set him on fire. No cost, no nothing. She can just do that. Knowing what she's capable of makes the rest of the movie feel somewhat tedious. Why are you throwing them around when you can just annihilate them? For some reason, the nun really likes to fuck with people this time around. During the finale, she's messing with the other students in this Catholic school for no reason. I could focus on killing the person who's solely responsible for my defeat last time, but instead I shall split my attention to fuck with a bunch of small children, and then proceed to not murder anyone else for the rest of the movie. Because the nun movies are weirdly relic focused, she's after another holy item. This time, it's the eyes of a saint that couldn't be burned by heretics. In the finale, she gets them, by the way, and then they just beat her. How? How did they not lose to her with the bullshit holy item? It's ridiculous. The characters in this movie aren't fundamentally broken. Sister Irene is fine. That's basically all there is to say about her. Taissa Farmiga does about as good a job as she could, but it doesn't seem like the director's giving her much to work with. Sister Deborah's fine. That's basically all there is to say about her. Storm Reed does about as good a job as she could, but it doesn't seem like the director's giving her much to work with. The Frenchie's fine too. His actor's charismatic enough, so seeing him be nice to children makes me feel bad for him, I guess. I can't remember the name of the kid, or her mom, or any of the other students, but they were all fine. They did what they were supposed to, which is look scared and run from danger. The movie does have a point this time, though. It's not something I thought I'd have to celebrate, but okay. The Nun 2 takes the loose idea of faith from the first movie and refines it to be an actual theme. Sister Deborah is a newer nun and is questioning her faith. She and Irene have a couple of conversations about it, but I feel like they never went deeper than, why should I have faith? And you just gotta have faith, bro, trust. The ending ties us together decently well, though. They're fighting the nun in a wine cellar, and she already has the eyes, so she's all powerful or whatever. Irene and Deborah then pray to convert the wine into the blood of Christ, and then the barrels explode and wipe Valak from the face of the earth. I think this is a good idea. Consuming the Eucharist is one of the most common acts of faith in Catholicism. It's the belief that the wine really is the blood of Christ, and using that to beat the bad guy in your movie about faith is smart, especially when they were defeated last time by the literal blood of Christ. My issue is we know Valak survives this. The Nun 2 takes place 4 years after The Nun, and Frenchie doesn't meet with the Warrens for about 15 more, so she survives all of this bullshit. An act of faith, my ass! It's also really weird to see the power scaling when you step back and look at it now that there's 2 movies solely about the nun. You're telling me she can't kill Ed? I've watched her murder multiple people. I know she can. Also, this means she survived the literal blood of Christ and the blood of Christ through the Eucharist, and then gets beat by Lorraine telling it to leave. So, does Lorraine scale higher than Jesus? Is The Nun 2 the worst in the franchise? No. Is it good? No, not really. I just think it's really stupid. There's really not much else to say about it. Anyway, we've only got one more movie to talk about. I know I say this every time, but man, this sure was a journey, wasn't it? And it's all this movie's fault. In case you're watching this in 2029, yes, you, Ethan, this movie just came out, so you might see me looking down at my script a little more often. I'll do my best, though. The thing is, having watched all these movies in the weeks leading up to this film's release, I had a pretty good idea of what it was going to end up being like. I expected lame ghosts, bad character writing, and a whole lot of Ed and Lorraine fanfiction, which is disappointing. You know how excited I would have been to be excited about this movie? But yeah, no, I was pretty much dead on. It kind of sucks. Quality-wise, it's in the same boat that The Nun 2 is in. I could very easily pretend this is an affront to nature or any audience member with fully functioning lungs. But honestly, it's like a 4 out of 10. It functions as a movie, but doesn't work very well with what's been established so far. There's this crazy demon mirror that Ed and Lorraine investigated when they were younger, but due to personal issues, they abandoned the case. Years later, that demon mirror winds up in the hands of the Smurl family, who start experiencing very extreme paranormal events. It's now up to Ed, Lorraine, Judy, and her new fiance to put a stop to it once and for all. Since this movie's more recent, I'll offer like an actual spoiler warning. Sorry if you haven't seen any of these movies before, but how far into this video are we now? I'll do the good stuff first because that'll be a little bit faster. In this movie, Judy's an adult and we meet her partner, Tony. Tony's honestly pretty alright. Watching Ed and Lorraine groom him into being the next generation of Ghostbuster is fine. I honest to God think he's the best written character in the movie, which is insane. I like the idea of this haunting, even if it gets sidelined as soon as the Warrens and Tony show up. Wait, I'm supposed to be talking about good things. What am I doing? Just like the other Conjuring movies, there's a real case here, and the family we follow is the Smurls. Considering Ed and Lorraine were really involved in this case, it's probably completely fake. To loosely cover the details, the Smurl family was getting harassed by some ghosts, and the parents have some really specific and really freaky claims. That's none of my business. The Smurls are another big family and they're doing their job, but this ends up feeling like a worse version of the parents. What bothers me is that there's nuggets of good character writing in here. Earlier in the movie, one of the younger daughters sees a ghost, and when she tries telling everyone at dinner, they all just talk over her, and that shit's real. The dad doesn't believe any of the women in the household until he has his own paranormal experience, and then they get mad at him for like 2 scenes, and then they just stop caring. I can see the script somewhere deep inside of there, but it's like it's being possessed by the spirit of greed and money. The Smurls could have and should have been such an interesting family to follow, but unfortunately they just aren't given the time to shine. It should speak volumes that in a Conjuring movie, I don't even remember if we see the Smurls after the ghost is defeated. I will also say there's a good jump scare in here. I won't tell you where because I'd kind of ruin the point, but it's in there somewhere. And I think that's it for the positives about the movie, so let's bring on the negatives, baby. This is the most, sorry, you aren't paying enough attention. This is the most fan-fiction-y these movies get, and it's insane. The point of the movie is that the Smurls are being haunted by a demon from Ed and Lorraine's past. You remember how these movies get worse the more we focus on Ed and Lorraine? It's worse. The core concept of the film doesn't just sideline the victims of the haunting, it completely abandons them. At the beginning of the movie, they're investigating a case while Lorraine is pregnant. The long and short of it is that some guy ate it, and his daughter swears it's to the fault of the new mirror they just purchased. Who are they helping? Shut up. Lorraine touches the mirror and is forced into labor. They're in the hospital and the demon from the mirror kills Judy with her umbilical cord. So Judy was stillborn. But we've seen her like 40 times in this franchise. How'd she live? What if Lorraine just locked in and prayed really hard for like a whole minute, guys? What are we doing here? How did we go from ghosts are real, watch this exorcism to whatever the fuck is going on over here? Did you know this is the last Conjuring movie, by the way? I don't know if it's just because I've watched the entire franchise in the past few weeks, but it seems like this movie's borrowing a lot from the past ones. If these were just quick little references, that'd be one thing, but they take up entire scenes and don't innovate on the scare at all. We're just watching the same scene for the nth time. Speaking of reusing stuff, why is Annabelle so present in this movie? Before some smartass jumps in the comments here, yes, I know there's an in-universe reason. The demon uses your fears against you, and Judy's afraid of Annabelle. Come on though, dude. Why is there so much Annabelle in this movie? At one point, Judy goes into the Smurl's attic, and there is just a totally inconspicuous rocking chair. So I lean over to my girlfriend, and I'm like, babe, I know someone who would love that chair. And she's like, oh, nice. Sure enough, not 5 fucking seconds later, chalk comes out from under the mirror and on the ceiling you see Miss Me. And then the movie's about Annabelle for 10 minutes. Why? Why? Are you still scared of Annabelle in 2025? Is anyone scared of Annabelle still? You know, if you are, I actually have a great cure for you. You should watch this movie. It's called Annabelle Comes Home. Transition sentence, this movie's afraid of consequences. This is really the only point I'll get to talk about Ed, since this movie's really about Judy and Lorraine. But this film is horrified of consequences. There are several times where something will just come up and then not matter. The worst culprit here is Ed's heart attacks. Early in the movie, Ed is seeing a doctor for his heart, and the doctor tells him that if he has one more heart attack, he'll die. Can you guess how many heart attacks he has in this movie? It's actually not 0. He has nearly 2. He almost has a heart attack playing ping pong against Tony. And this scene is mostly fine. I honestly thought they'd have the balls to give him a heart attack when Tony asked Judy to marry him, but this movie's no fun. The actual heart attack, allegedly, comes at the climax of the film. Judy, now possessed by a demon, punches him in the heart so hard he flies back up the stairs and into a wall. Now, I assumed silly me I guess, that he'd be having a heart attack? And I think the movie wants us to think he's having a heart attack, but he takes a pill and is fine. So clearly that wasn't a real heart attack. You can't just ignore a heart attack with a pill. Maybe these are those pills that Trunks gave Goku, but like, those didn't stop his current heart attack either. Those were about prevention. As funny as all that is, the real problem with this movie is Lorraine, and it's not even close. This is the Lorraine movie, but she's not the psychic we're familiar with. For some reason, she's been rewritten to have taught Judy to shut out the ghosts they see. Why? Lorraine has always been shown to view her power as a gift, and this goes double when it comes to Judy. The entire reason she's chosen this life as a medium is because she couldn't just ignore the people who needed her help. This is despite the fact that her entire life she's faced ridicule because people don't believe in something she literally knows to be real and true. She falls in love with Ed because he's the first person who believed her when she said she saw things. I've seen her interact with other kids who are being tormented by spirits, and there's never anything but sympathy, but comfort, but support. We see what sort of effect this would have on Judy in Annabelle Comes Home. If that movie did one thing well, it was show us that Judy is used to seeing spirits. In fact, the arc they mostly forgot to write for her in that movie was realizing that not every ghost, and also every person, was out to get you. My point is, she's already pretty well adjusted, and it makes sense that she is. Lorraine and Judy know for a fact these spirits are literally there, and Lorraine knows how scary and dangerous it can be. But more than anything, Lorraine understands what it's like to go through that alone. Looking through these films leaves me with no doubt that she's the type of person that would teach Judy how to deal with this, so that way she can not only stay safe, but not go crazy. We'll take all of that shit and throw it away. Judy's actually been scared shitless of ghosts her entire life, and is having panic attacks because she's hardly able to deal with it. Lorraine has always been a horrible mother who would never teach her daughter how to handle this situation safely. It sucks because when Lorraine's written well, she's honestly one of my favorite psychic characters in horror. But the problem is that they haven't written her well in nearly a decade. This movie is centered around a colossal misunderstanding of the characters they're writing about. And as a result, watching it feels like a betrayal of the time I've spent getting invested in this series. Judy's fine in isolation, but because of the changes to her lore, she feels just as weird as Lorraine does. Judy is attacked by ghosts multiple times in this movie, to the point where she's having like mental breakdowns because of it in public, and she still doesn't tell either of her ghost-busting parents. Why wouldn't you tell either of your ghost-busting parents that there are ghosts attacking you? The marketing for this movie also just blatantly lies to you, for the record. This movie's being sold as the case that ended it all. The ultimate final scary case. The case that destroyed their family. The one where Ed dies probably. Fuck it. And I'm being so serious. None of that is true. At the end of the movie, Ed's fine. Just ignore his heart attack, by the way. Lorraine's fine, Judy's fine, Tony's fine, the Smurl families are all fine, everyone's fucking fine. They're at Judy and Tony's wedding, and then Ed goes, "Oh, well, what's in our future, Lorraine?" And Lorraine's like, "Oh, well, we'll keep helping people for as long as we can. And then when we can't go to them to help them, we'll help them over the phone." I can't believe this isn't false marketing. They're completely fine. Ed lives for 20 years after this movie takes place. What's frustrating is that I think I know how they could have written this movie, not only to be good, but to be about that case that nearly tore apart their family. I'm gonna pitch this to you, so just stick with me for a second. Make Ed the one who taught Judy to shut out the spirits. Ed isn't psychic. And while obviously he can't really do anything about Lorraine seeing spirits, I don't think it'd make him exactly happy that Judy is too. Her life would certainly be safer, if not just less scary, if she were normal like he is. As she gets older, she'd obviously be aware this stuff is real, but because Ed isn't privy to what their experience is like, it'd be easy to justify him being afraid of it hurting Judy. Ed isn't psychic, so the only way he can help Judy is to get her back to a place where he can. He has to get her back to the real world. So secretly, sometime after Annabelle comes home, probably, he starts telling Judy to shut out the spirits when they start to overwhelm her. Now Ed has something to do in this movie other than not die and pick on Judy's fiance. I can't imagine Lorraine would be very happy hearing about this, so now we have a natural wedge to drive between her and Ed, and between her and Judy. They were seriously so close to making this movie good. But nah, let's just lie in the marketing, guys. I'm sure no one will care. Ignoring some of my funnier critiques, this would be fine if it were just one movie. But it's not just one movie. This is the 4th Conjuring. This is the 10th in this franchise. And this is how we're sending it off. How disappointing. I've felt a lot of conflicting emotions throughout this watch. But now that it's over, I just feel kind of You know? Am I a fan of the Conjuring movies? Watching through them, I'm not so sure. I'd like these movies to be good. I want them to be good. But sadly, that just isn't the case anymore. I've pointed out a lot of contributing factors, but I don't think there's exactly one reason why the films got worse as they went along. Unless you're accepting money as the answer, in which case, it's money. Generally speaking though, I think there was just a misunderstanding on what made these movies spectacular. It was never the crazy effects or the dolls. It certainly wasn't The Nun. It was the drive to tell a compelling story. No wonder everyone thinks the Nun movies are the worst ones. They don't have anything to say. No wonder everyone thinks the Annabelle movies are terrible. Only one of them has parts of a story to tell. No wonder people still compare everything this franchise has produced to the first Conjuring movie. It's the only one that still holds up. It's possible that my perspective on this is skewed. I walked into this expecting to be disappointed, and to be fair, that's exactly what happened. It's weird binging a franchise you used to respect and watching as everything good about it systematically flushed out of its system. It's like every time they went to write a new movie, they challenged themselves to make it uniquely weaker than the last. If we're ignoring Annabelle Comes Home and The Curse of La Llorona, fuck you, you fucking suck, these movies are at worst a 4 out of 10. Could it be worse? Absolutely. But will it always sting to see something I held in such high regard fall from grace and bottom out as something I'm gonna actively ignore from this point forward? Probably. And that's it. Thank you guys so much for sticking around until the end of my really long video on The Conjuring. If you guys enjoyed it, you should totally subscribe because I've got some more awesome stuff coming down the pipeline for you, and I would hate to see you miss out on it. I've been recording since 3 o'clock and it is now 9:17, so I am done talking for the day. But I want to hear from you guys. Where do you think the Conjuring movies start to fall off? What's your favorite ghost in the franchise? Did you know the nun is right behind you? You guys should totally let me know in the comments below. I'm always reading them and I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about this one. Also, like the video. I feel like that one's pretty self-explanatory. That's about all I've got for you today. I guess I should, okay, editing me, make a tier list of the movies, put it on screen. I'm sorry I'm making you do this later, but you'll have to deal. Okay, now that's really it. As always, I'm Knightley. You've been absolutely incredible, and I'll see you relatively soon. Peace. I know I mentioned it in passing earlier, but I have the 7-disc collection. There's not 7 discs, there's 7 movies on 3 discs. But this is possibly one of the worst DVD boxes I've ever owned in my entire life. You wanna see what happens when I open it? All the movies fall out.